Thanks to Audible for supporting PC Perspective. For a free audiobook with a 30-day free trial, go to audible.com/PCPer or text PCPer to 500 500. Hey everybody, welcome to the PC Perspective podcast. This is episode 494, being recorded on April the 4th, 2018. I'm Ryan Shrout.
I'm Jeremy Hellstrom.
I'm Josh Walrath.
I'm Alan Malentano, and are we doing him?
Those other two guys.
Those other two guys over there.
And we're all shocked to see Ryan tonight.
Yeah, but didn't you guys have me, if you didn't watch the live stream, wasn't my face in an ad last week?
Oh.
Or was that the week before?
Not last week. We didn't have an ad last week.
We didn't have an ad last week? You're all fired.
Thank God.
In any event, welcome to the show. We talk about PC hardware. PCPer.com is the home base of the stuff that we talk about for the majority of the time. You can watch us stream the show live on Wednesday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific at PCPer.com/live. If you need a little reminder for that, you can go to PCPer.com/subscribe right now, or anytime for that matter, and fill out this form. Asks for your name, your email address. Look at that, it even scrolls. I was just checking. And we'll send you a notification when we're going to do a live stream of some kind, whether it be this or something else or something else. That's all I got. Of course, we still have our Patreon campaign running. That is at patreon.com/PCPer. This is your way to become a direct monthly contributor to the website. It could be $1, $5, $10, $20, 50, 100, 1,000, whatever you want it to be. And basically, if you run an ad blocker or if you just think you like the content that you see from us, whether it be the mailbag or this podcast or reviews or stories, it's a way to say thanks, and we thank you for that, of course. And as we typically do during the podcast, if anybody becomes a new patron during the show, I will read out their name on the live stream. For example, we have a new patron for $1, so the minimum entry, I think, is $1. From Wait, Jim is real. I thought that was Josh with a wig. Just pledged $1.
Nicely done, Jim.
So there you go. So
you know what the best thing about Patreon is? If you're a believer in trickle-down economics, your trickle-down turns into my beer, and I'm not talking Coors Light. Talking Natty Daddy. Natty Light, baby.
Ice only for us. Thank you. We also still have, the Patreon does allow us to do cool things like the mailbags, which Alan did last week's mailbag, and I guess somebody else is going to have to do this week's mailbag as well. I totally meant to record that today. It did not, as it turned out.
Shoulda, coulda, woulda.
I guess that means that I'll be recording the mailbag.
Yeah, we got to alternate. So you can see.
Are you going to have another special guest?
What do I call this, Alan, behind you?
I don't know.
Wall of shit.
The wall of shit.
Yeah, it's just a bunch of crap.
It's basically wallpaper. There is no wall.
There is no wall in that office.
That stuff in the
Have you seen my office of shit lately?
Yeah, but I mean, if you look at yours, you can still see that it's a room.
There is a wall behind you.
Like there's a piece of art behind you.
You should just take a really high resolution photo of your shelves and then get wallpaper made, and you can pack all the stuff away.
That's true.
And think of how much more space you would have.
Yeah, I'd have another whole foot in that office.
You don't have to worry about knocking stuff over.
Don't you know that she's reviewed all these motherboards throughout the years?
Wait, you review motherboards?
I knew that. Also, we still have our merch going as well. That is bit.ly/PCPer merch. And you can buy t-shirts like Death Wish Raid or Hot Dog Down a Hallway or Super Pipe or a mug, Sweet Sweet Lemonade. And you can't see it, but it's over here. It's the PCPer logo one. But obviously buying these t-shirts helps support us as well. We've had many requests for this feature to be added. So there you go. All right. We went out of order there.
Oh, no.
Well, they were out of order in the show notes, so I blame.
I'll take the blame on it.
Okay, fair enough. Let's jump into the content. I think the first thing we're going to talk about is the Hades Canyon NUC, otherwise elegantly known as the Intel NUC 8i7 HVK. Which
rolls right off the tongue, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's way more interesting than the name would imply. Ken did this article for us. This is the first real hands-on with a Kaby Lake G product. So this guy right here, this is an Intel Kaby Lake quad-core hyper-threaded processor on the right in that photo as you see it, attached on the same substrate with a Vega GPU and HBM2 memory. So this is Intel processor, AMD Radeon graphics. So pretty interesting product. And this is what it's contained inside. A not so mini NUC. It's still relatively small. It's very compact, very dense. But they're getting larger, Ken. These are getting larger. What about as we look at the specs and pricing here kind of stands out to you other than the sweet? Can I make the glowing eyes any other color than red?
Yeah, all of the LEDs on the system are RGB. So there's the 3
nice
LEDs on the front, the power button, the 2 zones on the skull. So you have the eyes and the skull outline. You can change all independently or turn them off.
Yeah,
if you're boring.
Losers. So
Skull Trail just won't die, will it?
No,
that logo will live forever, probably. forever. So what do you got for specs wise? Anything stand out?
I got 6 display outputs.
Wow.
How could you possibly need 6 display outputs from a NUC? I don't know, but you got them. 2 Thunderbolt 3, 2 mini display port 1.3, and 2 HDMI 2.0.
Is that courtesy of the fact that we have the Intel integrated graphics still on the processor?
Yeah. And
then we have the discrete graphics on the thing. Okay. All right. Yeah.
They say you can support 5 4K displays at 60 and 1 at 30 simultaneously.
Nice.
Just couldn't make it to 6 at 60, I guess.
Oh, is there any specific port that's limited to 30 or anything?
I don't think so. I think it's just a bandwidth constraint when trying to use everything.
Just the sheer bandwidth of all the things.
I mean, it's got
because there's only a byte connection internally between the CPU and GPU. So
correct.
That
is it passing the discrete back through? What's going on there? How is it? Are you limited
the GPU
to
is connected over PCI Express, like a GPU.
Yeah, but are the display outputs connected to the GPU? Or is it like half and half, or do we know?
Are you limited to what connects where, and does some ports only go to the discrete?
I think that would have to be the case, right? Because I don't think the Intel integrated graphics is going to support 6 displays.
Right.
So you have to have. There's some that are going to either.
I just didn't know if maybe the discrete thing everything passed through the Intel pipeline, so to speak, and then.
But could it pass back through there if you still wanted to have 6 simultaneous displays?
With this GPU, maybe?
Well, it's not. It would be the bottleneck would be the Intel integrated graphics.
Yeah.
Right. So, I doubt it. 2 M.2 slots, SATA, PCIe. There's a lot of stuff on here. Now, $799 and $999 are the prices listed there. Those are bare bones systems. That does not include memory or storage.
Yes, includes Wi-Fi.
It does include the Wi-Fi card. Okay. So you've got to add, 16 gigs of SODIMM memory, right?
Yeah.
You've got to add storage of some kind. You want an M.2 PCIe drive for this. Probably there is no 2.5-inch.
No, but you can do M.2 SATA.
Okay.
That's an option. So
and you can run one of each, or you could do 2. Yeah,
the way Intel provided these to reviewers, they had 16 gigs of DDR4, 3200 memory.
Yeah.
And they had a 118 gig Optane drive and a 500 gigabyte Intel 545S SATA SSD. They're kind of going with dual boot. They had the OS on the Optane drive, of course.
And
then they were having just had the SATA SSD available for. Yeah. I put games on it naturally.
Sure.
That other port will also do PCIe, right? Both. Okay.
They'll both do PCIe. Yeah.
They'll both do either.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you can kind of get a sense of scale of the device itself when you look at the USB ports, right? Was it heavy? Was it?
It's pretty dense.
He's sitting on a desk. It's not like it matters, but I'm just curious.
Part of Intel's spiel about this at the editor's day was you can kind of if you need to, you can bring it. So if you were using this for productivity stuff at work, perchance, and you needed to bring it home as opposed to a desktop, you could throw it in a bag. Or if you're going to a LAN party, it'd be a pretty decent option for that. Yeah. So it's not heavy. It's not small
it's just
per se, but
dense
it is
little thing.
Portable, quote unquote. It doesn't have a battery.
I mean, if you look at that bottom shot that I'm showing, you've got HDMI, 4 USB, 2 Ethernet, 2 Thunderbolt, 2 mini DP, 2 Thunderbolt 3 power, and then is that a Kensington lock port
of
on
course.
the far left?
No, it's optical audio.
Oh, optical audio. Okay.
Come on.
That's all the way across there.
Is there no Kensington lock port on this?
No, there isn't actually.
Really?
Well,
finally, somebody has threw in the towel on that, huh?
How big is the power brick?
230 watts.
How big is it physically?
230 watts.
It's big.
It's the normal size of a gaming.
Is it the size of the Nook?
It's a little smaller.
Does the
than
power brick have the Kensington lock on?
So, any headaches in terms of getting inside of it, or attaching the device, attaching the hardware you need to?
It's kind of oddly deceiving from the Nooks. If you scroll back up, you can see on the very top. Scroll up. There's the top plate with the 6 T5 screws. You take that off, and then you're greeted. You might expect to actually be able to access the RAM and the SSD at that point, but since they have that LED panel on the top, you're greeted with EF shielding, and you have to kind of hunt to find the 3 screws to take out there, and then you can pull that out. But keep in mind, it's connected by a ribbon cable because it has to get power to the LEDs. Right. So don't flux that too much. Yeah. And then you can get access to the machine.
Got it.
So not the worst thing in the world, but not necessarily friendly for a bare bones kit.
Everything accessed here on this one side, though. You don't have to go any further in deconstruction.
I thought about going further, but it was a mess.
Understand.
Just look at the sheer rows of ports. Like
it's all I/O.
I mean, just all the way across there. It's like how dense can we make this thing?
All right, so let's get to the important part here. How did it perform?
Could you go back in a second?
I could.
How many? 2 NVMe?
Yeah.
Or just one Optane, one NVMe?
No, 2 M.2 slots, both supporting PCIe or SATA.
Oh,
yeah,
that's nice.
Well, I mean, when you got this much space, you can only do so much. You gotta do whatever you can. So, what about performance? What are we looking at? CPU performance first. Expected. It looks a little bit better than maybe we thought it would be.
Yeah, so it essentially had a substantial lead over the 8th gen quad-core parts, which we kind of expected because this is technically, I guess, an H-series part. It's more in the 35 to 45 TDP range.
Yeah.
If you keep going, Cinnamon didn't quite show it, but most of the tests show it fairly competitive with the desktop i5-8400, which is surprising.
Yeah.
So if we look here in Geekbench, that's another synthetic. It's not necessarily the best, but if we look at like hand braking coding,
artisanal
hand coding,
yeah.
Oh. You can see it's actually really competitive with the desktop part.
Yeah, interesting.
And beats the Ryzen 5 2400G APU part pretty handily. In some of those tests.
And then I think one of the more interesting parts is obviously the graphics side, because this is the first time we've seen this Vega implementation. And like here's 3D Mark Firestrike synthetic test, but interesting to look at. The blue bar is the 8809G. That is the Kaby Lake G part.
Catchy product name.
It is. Just roll 8809.
Scroll down a little bit, would you? Just a small amount.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, there you
Thank you. Oh, thank the Lord.
The gray bar being a desktop Core i5 part with a desktop RX 560, and then the orange bar is the desktop Core i5 with the 1050 Ti. And you can see in the graphics test, it blows it away, right? Like both of those platforms. So 10,200 versus 7,700, 7,200.
Yeah, I mean, overall, I'd call the graphics performance similar to 1050 Ti on the desktop, and probably similar. Like 1050 Ti is also a mobile part, so I'd expect similar performance to that if you're kind of price comparison shopping laptops.
I mean, borderline VR.
You could do VR.
Like very borderline, but
it depends.
That's interesting.
Depends on the VR.
They definitely advertise it for VR, but
I mean, and it's important to look at if you look at the actual games testing you did, and you did a bunch of new games, Far Cry 5, Shadow of War, Assassin's Creed Origins, the 8809G doesn't beat the 1050 Ti in all of those instances anymore. It's basically a little bit behind in GTA 5, a little bit behind in Civ 6, but it's
which are the more CPU bound games out of all of the ones we've tested, which makes sense.
But it's impressive to see this out of this compacted form factor, knowing that there is no, technically it's discrete, but it's an integrated single package device. I find it to be incredibly compelling, and I think barring the pricing concerns, it would make a perfect machine for somebody like me personally who would take home, hook up to a machine, hook up to a monitor where I do mostly catching up on emails and stuff, but every once in a while I want to play PUBG or do something like that. Would be great. Power consumption wise, more than the 1050 Ti desktop.
Which is pretty surprising.
It is. Yeah.
140 watt NUC is quite substantial.
Yeah,
but the
right.
idle power gel really shows like how it's essentially a mobile processor.
How was the noise with it? Did you notice any noise problems, or was it obnoxious?
It was quieter than I thought it would be.
Yeah.
It wasn't hairdryer loud. You could hear it, but if you were actually like, I mean, we benchmark games without any audio, so you can obviously hear stuff. But if you were actually paying attention to audio of the game, you wouldn't really be able to hear it.
I remember the first bricks we had with the discrete GPU in it. That fan was awful.
Yeah.
So I'm glad to see that they didn't repeat that mistake. Pricing wise, $799 and $999. The difference being the GPU wattage, essentially. Is that right?
It's shaders as well.
So one is a 45 and one is a 65. Oh no, 65 and 100.
So there are two differences. There are the TDPs and then there are the integrated GPUs.
Right.
So it's the branding for this is very odd. It's the AMD Radeon RX Vega M, GL, and GH for graphics low and graphics high.
Perfect.
GPUs. So the lower end 799 SKU has the GL graphics, whereas the one we tested has the GH graphics. That being said, the GH graphics will only be available in this NUC. No notebooks have been announced with it. It's a 100-watt part. So it's a little unfair if you're looking at the performance of this NUC towards how the XPS 15 2-in-1 or the HP machine that have been announced and are launching currently will perform. I don't expect that big of a performance deficit. We tested all of our games at 1080p at the highest settings. I think 1080p gaming on any of these parts would be great.
Might have to adjust the quality settings a little bit.
Yeah, you might have to drop down a little bit to get where you want to be, but I think for the $200 price savings, it's pretty compelling.
Yeah. And if we look at pricing, the configuration that Intel shipped us our model at is a $1,700 price tag.
Yeah.
Right? For the DDR4 3200
ridiculous.
memory, the Optane module, the 545S SSD with Windows 10 in there, $1,700 is a lot of money for essentially a non-upgradable desktop PC. Right? It's very compact. It has a whole lot of cool technology in it, a lot of advantages in terms of form factor and size and stuff, but it is pretty expensive. You kind of put together a more modest configuration with, I guess, the lower end.
No.
The same 100-watt NUC.
Yeah.
But let's
only
see.
only a SATA SSD, slower DDR4 memory.
Yeah.
Which shouldn't have much of an effect because unlike other sort of APU solutions, this has built-in HBM2 memory, so you're not sharing system memory to the GPU, so slower memory isn't really going to be that much of a performance hit.
Yep.
Hey, so chat question. Who handles the drivers for this?
That's a good question.
Well, the answer is Intel distributes the drivers.
Okay.
Now,
is it the AMD Radeon
it's the
software
AMD
package?
Radeon software package that is being rescanned, and they made some adjustments, to make it.
And it's blue rather than
blue.
red.
Blue instead of red.
Blue instead of red.
Got it. Yeah.
But there is still a dependency on Intel to follow up on that, and obviously that's something we have to track and monitor.
Yeah.
Because they may get the package from AMD the same day or the day before AMD releases it for their discrete parts, and then it has to be on Intel's team to take that, package it, redistribute it, and send it out.
They might have to tweak something so it works properly with the rest of the...
I'm sure they'll have to do some stuff.
Yeah.
Because
a pretty good example of this was Far Cry 5, which came out Tuesday of last week, and this review went live on Thursday. So obviously that testing was done somewhere in between, and AMD had drivers released, but you can give it some slack because this was a pre-production system, but Intel wasn't exactly emailing us updated drivers saying, oh, hey, if you're testing Far Cry, use these, as we would expect from AMD
or Nvidia would both do that. Yeah. In fact, they did, right? They're very much, hey, this game's coming out tomorrow. Here's our driver. We're prepared, blah, blah, blah. Intel needs to get on that mindset. If they are already, they need to prove to people they're on that mindset, especially when you're going to ask somebody to put $1,200, $1,500, $1,700 of investment into that.
Yeah.
Really cool system, but now you're really getting, before, was it gaming? Kind of not really. But now it is.
This is meant to be a gaming machine. Right? So, yeah.
So they need to prove that. I'm really interested in this device.
We're doing some more stuff with it. One of the things I'm currently working on is sort of like my roommate has an older gaming PC with like a 7970 and a 3770 in it. Yeah. And I started to think, well, this would be a really good upgrade path for him because he only has a 1080p monitor that he uses, and he has an old desktop that's loud. It annoys the shit out of me all the time. Got a rattling fan.
Talk him into upgrading so your room's quieter. I got it.
So I think I'm going to do some comparison benchmarks, steal his system for a little bit, and kind of compare the two, see what it looks like.
I want more of these chips out there.
Yeah.
I do, because they just kick ass.
Apparently,
and they need to be more in form factors.
Yeah.
And I need to have it in the laptop that I'm getting upgraded for my work computer this spring.
The Dell XPS 15 2-in-1 is shipping, I believe.
And so is the HP. Well, they're shipping in like a week or two, I think. They have a pretty long lead time.
And I haven't seen one of those yet, and I've asked Intel for one. I've asked Dell for one, so we'll see what happens. The Dell, keep in mind the Dell 15 and the HP are both, they're even a lower TDP than these. They're
65 watt parts.
TDP down to 45.
From what we've heard, Dell may be tuning theirs a little lower.
They are tuning it to 45. So the performance is going to be a little bit different, but how much so will be interesting.
Hey, if I can play World of Warships, hopefully my boss isn't listening to this, at work, then it's going to be fantastic.
I think you'll be able to get away with that. So
a graphics benchmark. I'm doing stability testing. Leave me alone.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. All right, so check out that review, the Hades Canyon Nook. I wish they would just use that brand, but it's just a code name. So, but we put it in the title of ours anyway, just because. Before we get to our next review, we have some new Patreons. Two of these are so similar that I'm guessing they're the same person, but I'm going to go with it. One of them is, so Alan told me I could put anything here. I wonder if it stops at the I. Just pledged $3.
Does it continue on the next one?
No. Steve Adele pledged $10.01. So thank you very much, Steve, for that.
It's a palindrome of money.
What?
It's the same coming or going.
Oh, yes.
Palindrome.
Okay. I was trying to apply that to his name, and I was like, no, it's not. Okay,
No, it's 10:01. Come on.
And then we have another $3 pledge that came in from, quote, Alan told me I could put anything here. Is there a character limb? And then it stopped. So...
Yes.
Okay. The answer is yes. And apparently, based on his profile pic, that is the same person. So they decided to make the joke funnier the second time, I guess. So thank you guys for that. Real quick, we'll touch on a couple of reviews that were posted up this week. One, Christopher Koch posted a review of the Bloody Gaming B975 optical gaming keyboard. Bloody is... Bloody. Yep. See it? And the logo is a bloody handprint.
All right.
No, they've been pretty good for the last couple of years.
That's not blood.
Not the right color.
Well,
okay.
It is what it is.
What planet are you from? Come on.
They're a relative newcomer in the world of PC gaming peripherals. They're apparently a subsidiary of A4 Tech, which I had also not really heard of. But they do control their own manufacturing, right? So a lot of the other keyboard guys that we talked about here probably don't have that capability. So what's interesting here is the particular tech. This is a $150 keyboard, but it is optical switches, not mechanical. And because of that, it is adjustable. Mm-hmm. The what's the point of actuation can be adjustable. Now there's still
is it done through a lever?
Well, it's optical.
No. It's all light and
these
mirrors.
the guys we talked to at that one point, like a while back?
I don't think so. I think this
wasn't those guys.
Yeah,
okay.
different group.
Tech.
What was that?
That's different tech.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. That was like easy for me to say. Linear switches.
Yeah. But it still has to have an activation force. Otherwise, there has to be a spring in there for you to feel pressure back while you're typing.
Right.
But the idea is that it's modifiable and can be adjusted depending on what your personal preference are. So still standard 104 key keyboard. Chris walks through a lot of the different capabilities and functions. You can have different color of your wrist rest if you want.
Interesting wrist design there.
Yeah.
Does it say what you can set the range of actuation point to?
Like software adjustable?
Yes.
It should be able to be software.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, if you keep going down. I believe that they show it in the software section.
A look at what the actual, what the switch itself.
So they look like,
and so this is their new ones.
Compatible stems, which would be nice.
Yeah.
What were you saying, Jeremy?
This is their new one. I think it's their Lightstrike 3. Because a couple reviewers for the first couple said, the tech is great, being able to adjust it is great, but they're wobbly. because it's not mechanical, so it doesn't have that guide path. And so typing on them, like it's not that it's wobbling left and right completely, but it feels sort of squishy and weird. So they put stabilizer bars on every single bloody key in this thing.
I get it.
Which is really good up until they start squeaking.
Yeah.
And you have to start thinking about oiling them. But with this one, from what I read in this, it was much better. Like he did not have that same sort of a feel.
You can see a look at the bloody software here. Lots of support for macros. A lot of programming capability as well.
That's cool.
Which I think Chris even touches on in the story is like some people may consider this like cheating for gaming purposes, but hey, everybody has access to this type of stuff. I'm sure this is not the only keyboard to offer pretty complex macro.
There's a lot of keyboards that use QMK. This isn't QMK based, but that's pretty much the standard as far as I know.
Yeah. Of course, you've got to have your RGB lights, damn it, and all that control for it.
That's the swallow effect below there. Apparently, that bird sort of flaps
unique
around your
swallow
keyboard.
effect that causes a bird to dance
that was the wrong
across your
kind
keys.
of swallow effect I was thinking about.
That's why I said it.
So the new Light Strike Libra switches, they've addressed every issue I personally had with the prior generation of optical switches, but they've also made them one of my favorite switch types ever. Software is incredibly powerful, if unintuitive when it comes to advanced macros, but users willing to take the time will be rewarded with more advanced automation functions than you'll find anywhere else in the mainstream. So there you go. It is $150, so it's not a low cost product. And they do have variants of brown and orange switch options. Just I guess changing the feel of that keyboard. So check out Chris's review.
And if you have, orange swallows, then you need to see a doctor.
I don't have any answers.
I don't know what that means.
I got nothing.
Bloody swallows are worse, though.
No answers.
Oh.
Moving on. Sebastian posted a review of the Fractal Design Meshify C tempered glass case review.
So they've just given up on naming, right?
I when I first read this title, I just read it as Meshy. Fractal Design Meshy C.
That might be better.
That's actually better.
Well, Meshify. Yeah, it's not great. But hey, look at that image. Look at that picture that Sebastian took.
He takes good pictures.
He does.
So professional.
I just want to know how he got the fingerprints off that.
Oh,
well, he doesn't have
His
fingerprints.
child was not
He
on
burned his fingers
off of the mesh?
off.
Dedication to the craft.
As a security concern,
Oh no, it was purely aesthetic choice. I'm sure. No one, Sebastian.
Yeah.
Actually, the angular kind of like mesh design there matches like NVIDIA GPUs. Like it
kind of has a triangular polygon effect.
Yeah,
somebody Technoscope in the chat says he wants to take a hammer to the front gorilla and make it flat. That's probably not going to have the desired effect. It does have is that a tempered glass or a plastic?
Oh, that's tempered glass.
Tempered glass. It's only $89 case. That's why I was asking.
Wow.
Relatively small in stature. Not that there's anything wrong with that. There's the glass exclamation point error, and you can see the lighting umbrellas that Sebastian uses.
Oh, he's not supposed to let people know how the sausage is made. Man,
he's just trying to show everybody how professional he is.
I get it. Yeah.
Still got a lot of filters, bottom, top, side. It is front. My long national nightmare of having rear access, bottom.
Yeah.
Fan filters is looks like it's finally coming to a close globally. Anything else stand out to you, Jeremy, in this particular case?
It's the Meshify's newest version. It doesn't really change in any way, shape, or form, but that's not a bad thing because Sebastian always pretty much gives these guys a silver or gold. This one got a gold. And so, hey, if you really like tempered glass,
they do good stuff. I like that even
if you put the front cover in a microwave and set it for 30 seconds, it will flatten right out and become shiny.
Well, no, because there's plastic reinforcing it behind there. If you look.
I was saying like
you're just not working with with me in the joke.
You got to once you take it out, you got to shake it a little bit side to side.
I see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It looks like they've got like a thing that covers the back plate for you can mount your 2.5-inch SSDs to, which is nice. Pretty tight. It is a full
tight.
ATX case, but it's a micro or a mid tower design. He's still able to get his 240 millimeter radiator in there. It's not so bad.
I mean, you got to work on the spacing and the the wiring, obviously.
Always.
You know what really
As
sucks
usual,
about
looks like a
this?
tight squeeze.
The absolute worst.
What's that?
No optical drive.
The best. It's the best case ever. Editor's choice.
No, it is not. I'm sorry.
Best case.
I'm hoarding all these optical drives for the next 80 years that I'll be using them.
Okay.
Yep.
Yep. Enclosure temperatures look good. Noise levels not as great. I guess this is kind of what you expect from more of an open case with a glass side panel
And mesh front panel.
and a mesh front panel. Yeah, and you can, if you put the light at the right angle, you can see right through the baby. It's like
Ooh.
wearing a
That is quite pretty,
white
isn't it?
T-shirt for Josh.
Yes, I was going to say I was wearing that gauze dress and the sun set right behind me as I was dancing in the fields.
Oh, it was the worst day of my life. So check out that review. Fractal Design, Meshify, spelled like it sounds. Meshify C, tempered glass. And then finally, or no, not finally, also Gigabyte H370 AORUS Gaming 3 Wi-Fi motherboard review from Mori. I'm not going to go through this in too much more detail. Ken, remind me again, what are the new features of the H370?
Well, you see, there is a built-in integrated USB 3.1 Gen 2
Okay.
for 10 gigabits per second.
Got it.
file transfers.
Yep.
There's also 802.11 AC, but this board doesn't seem to use it. Doesn't seem to service it at all, which is interesting.
Yeah. So I wonder if it's embedded in the chipset now, but you don't, like, you still have to have.
I think you have to have additional hardware.
Yeah, which maybe is
the
what
answer.
they're doing. But so the H370 chipset is now the lower cost. Is it not lower cost?
Well, it's lower cost, but it's not the lowest.
Well, it's lower cost than the Z370. So basically,
Yes.
normally what we're used to seeing is the Z370 launch, like the Z3 or the high end launch with the mid range, launch with the low end all at the same time. This time we had this enormously long wait for no apparent reason. I guess they're working on new silicon to embed USB 3.1 Gen 2 and 802.11 AC
As
Wi-Fi.
opposed to all of those new features we got with Z370, like
Nothing.
nada.
Like nothing, yeah. But they wanted it out so they could, sell 8,700Ks before this week, apparently. It's got M.2
Drop a
support.
DVI to the back for some reason.
Well, the what the H370 lacks is the ability to overclock memory
And processor.
and the processor as well. Okay.
Only Z SKUs can
Only the Z SKUs will do the overclocking capability. Otherwise, these motherboards, like, this is the first review we have, but I've seen, a lot of documentation from ASUS and MSI and other Gigabyte boards as well. They seem to be very well featured, right?
Yeah. And you actually need less third-party chips now that you're doing 3.1 Gen 2 from the chipset.
Yeah. Of course, you got to do the CPU cooler fit. It fits. There you go. Look at that. It fits.
That barely fits.
It sits.
You got to raise the fan up a little bit, but it fits, Hey.
Oh, okay.
And I think this has the Wi-Fi module here. So it's a little odd. I agree.
It seems like maybe the Wi-Fi thing was a little late in the process, and maybe everyone didn't quite get ready in time.
They do have removable illuminated LED strips that go next to the memory. This one has like some kind of tribal tattoo looking thing. The other one has the AORUS logo and PC Perspective printed on it. Probably yours won't ship with the PC Perspective name printed on it.
Maybe
If
we
they
can get that
do,
special
I need you to
edition
tell
going.
me so I can sue them. But yeah, you can see that in the photo right here, and then you can see the tribal version in the.
Hey, didn't somebody just order a laser etcher?
I did. Oh, shit.
That's true.
Great idea, Josh.
This one's already etched,
Hey.
so
I see the next $1 million idea.
I'm selling these things on Etsy.
Laser etched LED
for $9 a
RGB
piece.
lighting with PC Perspective branding.
Yeah, on a T-shirt.
I like it.
On a T-shirt.
Now this board retails for $139, so quite a bit less than where we've seen Z370 boards at. You can still use 8700K. You can still use. You won't be able to overclock it, but you can put that in there. But 8600, 8500, 8400.
If you have a non-K part, you should buy one of these boards instead of Z370.
Oh, for sure. absolutely.
It's only the price of one DIMM. I mean, come on.
It is interesting to note that one of the two M.2 slots on this board, there's one here and then one, I guess right here.
There you go. Yeah.
One of them is limited to by 2 bandwidth, which is, I think, the bottom one. Is that right?
Hope.
I would hope so.
Well,
it would be awesome for that.
I guess it is because
who
it's
was
a shorter
that?
one.
BFG or BFS or who was that?
I wasn't BFG.
No. Alan.
What
was the last NVMe group?
My digital SSD.
Oh, the SBX.
My SSD or whoever.
The SBX was the by 2
digital SSD. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that or Optane memory. Only uses 2 lanes. So
True.
Well, and the 800p, not just Optane
and the
memory.
800p. Yeah.
And before you scroll, make sure to look at that CMOS battery. It's actually an
ideal
usable
CMOS
box.
battery.
Nice. Very nicely done, Gigabyte. Anyway, that by 2 one, you would, in theory, is like, could be Optane specific. You could put whatever you want in there, but it is limited to by 2 bandwidth. The other one limited to, or still is by 4, and the full size that nobody really uses. So check out that review if you're interested in the H370 products, and then we'll jump over to the next story here. We've got the Lenovo Star Wars Jedi challenges. Chris wrote this review up for us as well. This is $199 MSRP, but actually I think it's selling for $149 on Amazon as I published this, $169 when he wrote it. This is a slot-in phone augmented reality gaming thing where you use a lightsaber and a little ball here that sits on your floor so that it knows where the floor is, and you lightsaber battle.
Is this the one you're
Kylo
trying
Ren.
out?
Yeah, I was trying it out in the office before I sent it to him. Kylo Ren or Darth Maul or Darth Vader, whatever. There's other mini games that go along with it. You can fight some battle droids. The hardware here is actually pretty interesting. So you're paying $150 for essentially one game that has several mini games in it, and because of that, the pricing structure is going to be difficult for most people to justify, especially at $200. At $150, maybe less so. But you do get a really cool lightsaber. It looks really good. It has a little white nubbin at the end that illuminates when it's on.
Nubbin.
It works with modern iPhones, modern Android phones, although you definitely go check the compatibility lists over on Lenovo's website for this. It is augmented reality, so it's not VR. You aren't completely entrenched, which also means any problems you might have with, motion sickness and stuff are pretty much alleviated because you can see all the other stuff around you.
Yeah.
Right. Installation, relatively straightforward. They come with a bunch of different adapters for you for basically connecting the connection of your phone into the device itself. That's how it's actually passing through video that is then mirrored off of part of the headset, and away you go. So it's pretty good. I would encourage you guys to go read his review. He walks through the main game of the lightsaber battles. There's a slight bit of lag between the lightsaber movement in your hand and what shows up on your headset that I don't know how you fix exactly until you just get way, 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 way faster processing. You can play holo chess, which, a dream of Alan's for years. You can play.
Just don't play it with a Wookiee.
Strategic combat, which is essentially an RTS, kind of a slightly simplified RTS game on your floor. You're using the lightsaber controller then to kind of as a wand to point and move things. It's an interesting idea. He does kind of criticize cost of entry, especially at $199. At $149, you've cut 25% off that price. But the bigger risk is this is going to be a one-off thing.
Yeah.
Right? They're not going to do much.
You don't think they're going to do many more games?
They did release it like an expansion pack for the original game where they added in characters from the most recent movie or whatever and stuff like that. But I don't know how much
it only has so long of a shelf life.
I don't believe that there won't be any DLC. That just can't happen anymore.
I just don't know. I don't know. You have to see what the install base is and what like who funded this? Did Star Wars fund this? Did Lenovo fund this?
Yeah.
Who was kind of responsible for making this happen, and have they made any money on it?
You're selling the money that you spent at Disney
probably
World.
not at a loss.
You actually,
with AR, This is an untapped area. I can think of a dozen applications with something that looks like a lightsaber that would sell a lot of products.
Yes, but not under the Star Wars brand, most likely.
Is Hitachi attached to Star Wars?
Don't go there,
I
Josh.
think so. Not yet, but there could be a
Lenovo's
tie-in at
buying
any
them, though.
point. At any point.
Any point.
I found this. I'm a huge Star Wars fan, so I found this incredibly interesting. However, I would probably not recommend it for a wide audience of people.
Yeah.
Go read Chris's article if you want some more takes on that, if you will. All right, so let's stop here for just a second, and we're going to talk about today's sponsor, which is an oldie. My trackpad disappeared. An oldie but a goodie, in Audible. You guys remember Audible?
I do.
They used to advertise with us a long time ago.
They
I've
used
never
to.
forgot them.
They've never gone away from our hearts, obviously. Audiobooks, obviously that's what Audible is known for. They are a great way of helping you be a better you. That's what it says here, so I'm going to say that to you. And I don't know if I'm talking to Josh specifically or just anybody. For our audience, Audible is offering a free audiobook with a 30-day free trial. If you want to listen to it, Audible has it. Just go to audible.com/PCPer or text PCPer to 500 and browse their unmatched selection of audio content. Download a free title and start listening. It's that easy. Audiobooks are something that I believe are kind of universally understood at this point to be a great thing, whether it be people who want to learn and continue their education while they're doing other things, whether it be you're at risk of falling behind in modern media as things, movies come out like, say, I don't know, Ready Player One, and you're like, I haven't read that book. I should read that book. I don't have time to read.
And the audiobook is really good of that one.
And the audiobook is very good on that one. So it could be, I want to force myself to be healthier. So I really enjoy these books, but I'm only going to listen while I'm riding my bike or driving. That doesn't really make you healthier, which was the point I was trying to get to.
But sometimes you're just stuck in the car
But
for an hour
sometimes
every
you're stuck
day.
in the car.
Yeah.
That's true.
Getting healthier in your brain.
It's true. Yeah. Okay. But this will help, it's a great motivational thing for you to use. It educates you as well. I think you brought it up, and when we were talking about it, I was like, I've got to pick a specific selection for this ad today. And I think Ready Player One is a great idea for that, because I also listened to it in audiobook format, and you did as well. Yeah. And it's, the rendition is fantastic.
When I first came, it's been years now.
Yeah, I think it's 4 or 5 years ago that I listened to it.
It's read by Will Wheaton.
Will Wheaton. And it's on there, and it's available for you to listen to. If you're excited to go see the movie and you want to read the book first, or you saw the movie and now you want to read the book, you can do that by listening to it through Audible.
Even if you've already seen the movie.
Oh yeah,
it's still like,
and I think that for most
differences.
movies and books, there's value in watching both. Yeah. You also have the ability, the feature called WhisperSync for voice, which allows you to switch back and forth between reading and listening to the audiobook across many devices, including Amazon's Kindle and Echo, without ever losing your place or missing a word. This is actually a really cool thing that when Amazon first bought Audible, I was like, they have to do this thing. Sometimes when I'm sitting in bed, I want to read, right? But when I drive to work the next day for 45 minutes, whatever it is, I want to be able to listen. And they have the capability to do that. And I didn't realize this until reading this, that basically the Echo supports it. So it will just read it out loud to you. That's pretty awesome, right? If you have an Echo in your house, and obviously, depending on who you're with, you may not want to just play it out loud overtly. Maybe your wife's out of town for the weekend or something like that, and that's a good way to listen to the content there. So it's a great service.
Does it just play the audiobook, or is it reading it in the Echo voice?
No, I'm sure it's playing the audiobook.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sure it's not reading it in the Alexa voice.
I have this audiobook.
I'm gonna have this machine read it
just
to
starts
me
reading
instead.
its own
So that's, again, a free audiobook with a 30-day free trial at audible.com/PCPer, or new text PCPer to 500. That's audible.com/PCPer, or text PCPer to 500. And we thank Audible for their support of this show, which is PC Perspective, the podcast.
That's really nice of Audible.
It is very nice.
Yeah.
/PCPer.
/PCPer.
Right, don't forget that part.
Don't.
All right, we'll get into some of the news items here that we can run through. GTC was last week, NVIDIA's GPU Technology Conference. I was there for that. They had several announcements, including a $400,000 server and a $9,000 graphics card. So
Let's run out to the store immediately.
if you're curious why...
Everybody's broke?
No, well, that too. But if you're curious why NVIDIA's maybe...
Not so eager
not
to
raring
launch.
to go and making sure you get your GTX 1070 in time. It's because they could sell
they're busy making
$400,000
super-
servers and $9,000 graphics cards instead. But also they did. They announced NVIDIA NVDLA integration with Project Trillium, which I know something, Josh, you have talked about. Which is ARM's artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
My trackpad is not working anymore, so I have an inability
Either
to
is
scroll.
my brain.
So this is actually really interesting. NVIDIA built a deep learning accelerator, NVDLA, as an open source modular architecture that now ARM has announced that they're going to integrate into their Project Trillium, and this thus will enable generations of IoT devices to have some AI capability.
There's a lot of jokes here.
What?
All of the IoT devices just suddenly having AI. What could possibly
But
go
a
wrong?
minimal amount of AI, right?
Sure.
Carl, I'm going to screw up Carl's last name because I've never had to say it out loud.
Just say Carl.
Frund, who's an analyst over at More Insights, says it's a win-win for IoT, mobile, and embedded chip companies looking to design accelerated AI inferencing solutions. NVIDIA is the clear leader in machine learning training, and ARM is leader in IoT and endpoints. So
I'm
it
just
makes
waiting
sense.
for our smart light bulbs to start like psychedelically flashing or something.
So, Josh, any thoughts on this? On first of all, NVIDIA open sourcing something. Second of all, I guess when I heard about ARM Trillium, I thought it was going to be an ARM architecture product that was being built into it, but maybe that's not the case.
It doesn't look it. It looks like NVIDIA's got their own product, and they're edging it into ARM's Trillium.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does.
It's about as simple as you could possibly get. There is no way that other than NVIDIA licensing ARM stuff for CPU usage, they are not going to give an inch in AI.
Agreed.
And deep learning and those stinking tensor cores, all of those things.
Jensen had an interesting quote when asked in a Q&A session about, hey, are you worried about ASICs? You're worried about ASICs taking away your leadership position in machine learning and AI, right? It's kind of been a prevailing theory going on. He said, we know about ASICs at NVIDIA.
I would hope that they do by now.
We put 12 engineers to design an ASIC for machine learning. Turns out it wasn't as good as what our GPUs can do, so we gave it away for free. And that's what this is. That was a comment he made. It was basically like, yeah, we tried it. It turns out you can't do as good a job, so we gave it away.
Okay.
And, it's an interesting comment to make, but and provides funny commentary for us. But
kind of kneecaps all your competition who,
are trying to make the case that ASICs will take over that spot. So now, of course, you could just say, well, maybe NVIDIA is not very good at making ASICs, and that's why they gave it away.
They're not good at making ASICs. It's not all they do.
Customized.
Those Ethereum guys.
There's an argument to be made that NVIDIA lucked into a lot of where it's at.
Sure.
Right.
Absolutely.
Not that they didn't, do a ton of work once they figured out what they had, but suddenly GPUs could be used for this thing. They're like, holy crap, this is it. This is where we're going. So interesting discussion nonetheless. Also from GTC, the Disney Imagineering Group, and I'm very disappointed that I missed this part, talked about using the Unreal Engine 4 and 8 Quadro P6000 GPUs to power the upcoming Millennium Falcon simulator ride at the Star Wars land at Disney World and Disneyland that's opening in 2019. And
you're not going there at all.
Definitely, probably
you do
will
not have tickets whatsoever for Star Wars
Not
land.
at all. Not at all.
None.
Nor has he ever.
Nor will I ever. But it's interesting because they're using 8 GPUs for multi-GPU rendering on a very important project
on UE4.
On UE4. And they apparently have pushed that code back into UE, into Unreal Engine. Now, whether or not it's general purpose enough to be applicable to other games or engine, other implementations has yet to be seen. Also, I don't have a motherboard that supports 8 graphics cards or the ability to or desire to purchase 8 P6000s, which I think are
1080s.
Are they 1080s essentially? Yeah. But they're much more expensive.
Oh yeah.
But you would wonder if there is going to be a use case for this, to do 4 GPU support in UE4, right? Or is it just going to be, hey, this is a very controlled thing that they knew exactly what displays were going to be connected. They knew exactly what experience they wanted to have.
Can't that work if it's doing the other kind of not SLI, but whatever, the MDA or whatever the heck.
Yeah, the DX12 type
all
stuff.
That stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not really limited to 4, I thought. Like, I thought you could push that further.
I don't know the answer to that.
The game has to be coded to talk to all those GPUs at the same time, right?
Which is part of that puzzle, in theory.
Which is part of what they were working on, right?
Yeah.
So potentially, now I don't know, but how much motivation is a game developer going to...
I don't even know what API they used. I assume DX12, but they could have used Vulkan. They could have used...
Sure.
Yeah,
Vulkan is also multi-GPU,
Vulkan
right?
is easier than DX12 by a significant margin.
Could you use an API called Vulkan, though, in a Star Wars game?
I mean, this isn't going to help your AAA gaming titles necessarily, but it's going to help a lot of people doing large-scale visualizations, ArchiViz stuff with UE.
Yeah, agreed.
Other rendering projects, which is really cool.
So is this being used to just render to a very, very large canvas?
Probably.
It's a 5 projector
setup, but I assume
which Quadros have the support for projector blending built in. That's one of the Quadro features.
So pretty cool thing. I don't know if it will actually impact us, but hey, see what we can. This was before we get into the Intel 8th gen, Gigabyte 8th gen, ASUS 8th gen, MSI 8th gen. All that stuff down the line.
And a partridge.
Probably the last thing that I'll sit here and talk about is a report from Bloomberg that came out that basically said in 2020, Apple will start removing Intel processors from its PCs, its notebooks, and begin using its own processors.
They say specifically notebooks or just computers?
They say computers.
They say computers.
They say computers, and the implication is probably most likely notebooks
where the
first.
lowest TDP and performance restraints.
Right. What's a computer?
Apple doesn't know.
Ass.
So
that's them. Sure.
That's them. So what's interesting here is obviously this created quite the kerfuffle with Intel stock, I think, dropping 9% or something.
It didn't stay there very long.
It didn't stay there.
I'm really sorry to see that you have become an analyst.
It's been a lifelong goal of mine, actually, Josh.
Yeah, well.
So, wait, I moused over the curve.
Oh no!
Let's see.
Hey, get some.
Avocado's only 88 cents. Oh,
going
shit!
Going to Kroger.
Nice.
Let's go to Kroger.
I'll stop by there.
Wow.
Mouse hovering. Mouse hover ads. That's nice. So the implication here is that Apple believes that the work it's done on the A series ARM-based processors, most recently being the A11 Bionic, that they believe
by 2020 turn into an olive incentive.
By 2020,
Kalamata?
They will have enough performance to run macOS and start to displace Intel processors in some computers. Now, it's an interesting discussion to have for a couple of reasons. One is, as I point out in this part of it, like Qualcomm's trying to do the same thing already in the PC space. The Snapdragon 835 is now selling in a couple of notebooks, and they'll have a next generation part that's going to do that. They have a multi-year roadmap for this laid out that goes into 2020 and beyond. Are
they going to have to? Are they going to emulate x86?
Well, so I mean,
bring back the fat binaries.
So what you could easily do is, if you're Apple, so you control the operating system and you control the hardware, you can make that decision, right? You can have an operating system that is Mac OS completely architected for ARM, and then applications that you write and are responsible for, you can switch off the screen now, that you can completely move over to that, and then all you have to worry about is these third-party developers who are slow and lazy.
And you can just strong arm them,
exactly,
and they'll do what you want to do.
You absolutely
because they want to
do
make
that.
money.
You can absolutely do that. And Apple's already done this. They did this 12 years ago.
Motorola to PowerPC.
Yeah.
PowerPC to x86.
But I thought they had a virtualization layer for a while there, and
they did. They did.
Yeah.
And they would likely have to have something like that for some time.
Yeah.
But Apple's in a very different position now than they were 12 years ago.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
they have the mind share. They don't have like significantly better market share. They probably have better market share, but not significantly better.
That's my point.
They're about 10% of the notebook market. Right now.
Now, back in 98, 99, earlier than that, it was 95, 96, they had the PowerPC 6400 with the Intel coprocessor board. When they were still on.
That would have been Motorola to PowerPC. That really wouldn't have been Intel.
No, it had a dedicated subprocessor on a daughter board for PC emulation.
But they didn't move to x86 until 2000 and...
Yeah, that was
This is prior to the Intel migration. This was still PowerPC on the main processor. So it went 68040 to the PowerPC 601 to 603. And the 603, you can get one with a daughter board with a Pentium 586.
But why?
Yeah.
Because you need to run Intel applications on a Mac, and they didn't have an emulation layer in place.
It was a very weird thing.
I don't remember.
It worked.
It didn't last long.
I was very young.
And it worked, but it wasn't great.
I mean, like emulation is a thing, right? And Microsoft is emulating x86 for ARM now. It's not perfect, and it's probably not great.
Apple has so much more of an advantage here than Microsoft does in the ability to sort of change architectures because of the Intel architecture change and the stuff they've been doing since then, like high DPI support, where they've rallied the developers around using their common APIs and frameworks.
Yeah.
So that it will just be a recompile in Xcode and it will follow along.
That's true. It will be easy.
This will be the fourth time it's happened.
Yeah.
Well, sure, but...
So we went from the 6800 to the PowerPC to Intel and now to ARM.
Yeah.
4 architectures in 30 years.
I mean, 30 years is a long time.
Yeah.
To be fair, I'm a proponent that x86 could... Like there was what was the x86 everywhere was the discussion, right? That's what Intel talked about when they wanted to bring x86 into mobile phones. Now it's like x86 most places, and
x86 in places,
in some places. But ARM is going the other direction. Hey, ARM everywhere. That's their mentality, right? And there was, do I believe within 2 years they could get to fairly high performance? Apple's already creating the highest performance mobile processors that exist, right? I don't think there's a whole lot of argument there. The argument is about by how much. So in 2 years, could they do it? And now that you don't have a thermal limit of 5 watts, what can you do with your design that you could do differently? I think there's a whole lot. Apple has a ton of money. They hire the best people. They don't do everything perfectly, but they're not just going to jump in and totally screw it up, right? They at least have the money and the capability to go, hey, that this is a dumb idea, that they would cut it. And I think if we're at this point where we have a date and we have a code name and stuff, it's probably a real thing that's going to happen. Now for Intel, I think the report stated that Apple is responsible for about 5% of Intel's annual revenue. So it is a substantial amount, but it's not like a life-threatening amount for Intel. And it also is kind of an interesting complication because as part of the Qualcomm modem Apple phone dispute that's been going on, Apple has leaned into Intel as a secondary supplier for modem technology. And now that relationship might feel very different, right? I don't think Intel's going to go, oh yeah, well, if you don't want our processors, we're not going to give you our modems either, because that would be pretty stupid.
So they don't want people to buy their modems?
But I'm sure they would just please buy our modems, or please buy our whole modem division or something like that, or please buy Intel. I don't think that's going to happen.
Apple's done that in the past. They bought, I forget who.
But Intel's obviously a much larger entity they'd have to deal with. So it creates a whole lot of stuff. It kind of pre-validates the Qualcomm ARM on Windows thing. It doesn't make that product any better, necessarily just by existing, but it does kind of say, hey, maybe this is the right track of things. But it's also possible that this, only happens on the MacBook Air or whatever that machine is called nowadays. And
the MacBook.
Could this replace desktop PCs? Will this replace iMacs?
On one hand, there's another question that goes with that.
Yeah.
does that mean we're going to see iOS take over everything and Mac OS go away, or vice versa? Are they going to switch to one operating system for mobile straight through to desktop because, well, they're doing the platform on the same thing?
I mean, they've been working on unifying those two platforms unofficially for years, bringing in sort of UI elements into Mac OS from iOS and sort of the app switching mentality and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And they let Microsoft show how not to do it. So they've got that going for them too. But it's just really...
Another interesting thought that I've had on this is, another argument is like, hey, well, if you have if you have applications that needs high-end GPU work, like the Mac Pro area, the iMac Pro, it's going to be really hard for Apple to suddenly jump up to that level of performance, both in terms of having a 18-core Xeon and a, high-end Vega GPU. But hey, virtualized GPUs and cloud-based rendering is certainly picking up steam as well, and Apple could.
That would be an Apple move.
That would absolutely be an Apple move. It's like, don't worry about your graphics rendering. We've handled that here at this big circular building we have in California and throughout the world, right? And every iMac Pro in 2020 ships with 50 hours a week of free render time on Apple render farms, right? And
there's kind of been an interesting theory that when you bring that up, actually, that like Apple could ship. They've kind of been shipping ARM processors in Macs already with the iMac Pro and the most recent MacBook Pro, so they could potentially start to enable testing of ARM code on existing Macs for applications, and like kind of iron out the whole dev kit compatibility situation they had with the Mac Pro dev kits back in the day for the Intel transition.
Is that just a management engine kind of thing?
Nobody knows. It's got ARM in it. Like nobody knows the exact extent of what it could do. Like in the MacBook Pro, it runs essentially a version of WatchOS and the Touch Bar, but who knows? It could do more.
Okay.
Now, you guys can continue to debate this, but I'm going to get up from this table and walk away. Ken, do you want to take my seat here, or are you going to stay over there? Leave Alan by himself.
I'll stay over here with the
Somebody's
headphones
gotta
and
do
the
this
plugs
screen.
and everything.
And
Fine.
Just walk
Quit.
away.
You guys are all idiots.
Don't walk away, walk away, walk away, walk away.
you're supposed to walk in front of the camera for better effect.
Follow.
There.
Idiots.
Walk this way.
All right, let's do this shit.
All right. Now that we got rid of that joker, let's get on to the real show. As he closes the door.
As he shuts the door.
Well, this is unique.
Yeah. You know?
All right, so where are we at?
Did he tag team you? He's supposed to tag
I think
team
so.
you? Okay, good. I don't know. Where are we at next? Gotta find my place.
I'm so alone
Come
back here.
on and tell
Tonight's podcast is brought to you by the number 8.
Oh, yeah. The Optane, the new Optane stuff. That's next.
Well, we
What are
have
you
the
talking about?
You're gonna have to
multiple.
You're gonna have to hotkey with no touchpad. That's how Ryan has left you. The deal.
What a dick.
Yeah, I know, right? He broke the touchpad, and then you took over. Oh, he's still here.
Oh, he's back.
There he is.
What a dick.
If you broke the touchpad,
The
Sure.
F6 key again?
Yeah.
Anyway.
working?
Wait, why'd you go to that one first?
Because that's the more these are
Why'd
the
you
more
go-
interesting ones. We'll get to Optane later.
I was following the show notes. Dang. Okay, hold on. Which one do you want to do first?
We had like 3 Intel stories, so we grouped them together.
Go ahead, Ken. You wrote this one. Go for it.
Do you want a 6th gen or a 6th gen?
Sixth
A
gen?
6th gen processor in your laptop?
I think I
Boy,
already got one.
System for you.
Oh,
How about 6 cores? 6 cores in your laptop? How's that
that's
sound?
pretty good.
6 cores, 12 threads?
what TDP?
45 watt.
What?
That's on the high end for a laptop, but
Well,
6 cores.
it's the HQ. It's the gaming laptops. It's the more professional laptops with discrete graphics in it, not ultrabooks.
Yeah.
So Intel announced the sort of rest of their 8th gen mobile lineup earlier this week, including an i9 processor.
Which is a 6 core.
Well, no, actually, it's not just the 6 core. So if you look at the sort of breakdown here, all of the i7s are 6 core 12 thread. The i5s move from 4 core 4 thread to 4 core 8 thread, which is nice. And there's this i9 up here, which is mostly just a branding technique,
Yeah.
which is boost up to 4.8 gigahertz and fully unlocked.
So did the i9s replace the K series from the previous generation?
Yeah, they pretty much replaced the HK SKU, so the fully unlocked stuff. So they kind of just replaced the 7 with the 9 in that case.
Okay, so the
i9 is becoming their really enthusiast SKU.
The i9's like the mobile extreme edition.
Yeah, yeah,
Sort of.
pretty much.
For when you want an unlocked CPU on your laptop.
I mean, well,
Hey,
if we get to...
I know some people want to do it. Yes, I'm aware.
If we go ahead and get to what... Oh, no, not the developer
Where are you
tools.
going?
F11.
What? Ah.
If we get to Intel Velocity Thermal Velocity Boost, rather.
Interesting name, but okay.
This is sort of a layer on top of Turbo Boost 2.
Why is it wearing a condom?
I don't know.
Wasn't Turbo Boost 2 already a layer on top of Turbo Boost 1?
Yeah, they didn't really explain a whole lot about this, but they said typically we'll be able to see 200 megahertz on single core and 100 megahertz on the multi-core.
Yeah,
Turbo.
but the problem with that is even though you're going that fast, you're only going to feel about 75% as much.
Okay, why?
But
Some people are keeping up with me.
Yeah. All right, so anyway, so this thing
insufferable.
So this is essentially if you have the extra thermal headroom below 50C, it'll start to boost up to it.
Okay.
Intel did say with factory overclocking and non-locked parts, they expect to see OEMs hit 5 gigahertz and beyond on some of these notebooks with the i9 processors, which is kind of insane for 5 gigahertz single-threaded.
But we're talking 5
workloads.
gigahertz like for a while, right? Like not like
Yeah, they
for
didn't really say.
Not like for a second.
As long as it's under 50C.
Okay.
So
as long
and
as the
this is
cooling's
for
good
a-
enough.
you definitely get a ramp.
This is for a single core.
Yes. We're talking single core.
Okay.
You will see a lesser but still better performance enhancement to multi-core
Yeah.
turbos.
Are we doing the favorite core thing with this now?
No.
Okay, so we're not to that point.
As far as I know, that doesn't exist on the mobile stuff currently.
Okay.
Also, there are some chipset changes, including integrated 802.11 AC Wi-Fi, as we talked about earlier on the desktop side. That's also on the mobile side, which
2x2.
makes more sense. So it's 2x2 160 megahertz, which is a new frequency added in 802.11 AC Wave 2, which is very, very unsupported by routers now. I don't actually know of any router that supports it. I haven't looked
160
intently.
megahertz channel width?
Yes.
Yeah, highest I've seen is 80.
Yeah, so this is how Intel is saying they're breaking the gigabit barrier with Wi-Fi with only 2x2.
Oh, yeah, but you need something on the other end that supports
You need something on the other end. It's very unsupported. However, Intel putting this into a bunch of chipsets,
that should help get the support.
it will be very likely that the router people will follow up. That's kind of how Intel and the wireless market go, is they introduce something and then everyone else catches up. Like, look at Centrino back in the day, how big of a success that was.
That's true.
So hopefully we see some adoption there. Technoscope says in the chat his router supports 160 megahertz. So there are a couple out there. They're going to be really high-end stuff. Your router likely isn't going to support it, but you might have
Even
an
if it
upgrade
does,
path.
even if it does, you might need to keep your firmware updated a little bit more vigorously to make sure that it actually uses the speed or achieves it.
Yeah. Also on the mobile side, they announced the 28-watt U series parts with AORUS Pro graphics. Hint, hint. Apple is the only people that ever use these chips. They're
What
the
are you
only.
saying, Ken?
I think these are going to be in some new 13-inch MacBook Pros pretty soon.
I see.
Yeah.
But not after 2020.
After 2020. So essentially, these are the 4-core 8-thread parts with the 128 megs of ED-RAM for Iris Pro as sort of a level 4 cache. Actually, I think they might be calling it Iris Plus now. It's just a name change, as Intel is one to do.
Yeah.
Also, USB 3.1 Gen 2 connectivity, like we talked about in the chipsets as well. Moving on to the desktop side, they announced a couple of new SKUs, including the i5 8600, i5 8500, and i3 8300. These just kind of slot into the same, like the expected gaps that we saw with the previous launch.
Yeah.
More of the locked parts to go with the H370 and B360 chipsets. Nothing really exciting there.
Non-hyper-threaded parts.
Yeah. They also announced the T SKUs, which are the lower power desktop SKUs, which we usually only see in OEM systems. However, enthusiasts will occasionally get their hands on this for like fanless builds or stuff like that, which is kind of cool. We already talked about the chipset stuff. So I guess we'll roll into the Optane news that you alluded to earlier.
Yeah. So along with all of the other 8th gen stuff, there is another series of, or another line of like logos that they added. If you scroll down a little bit to the next thing there, you get a look at
Core
them.
Plus.
Yeah, it's this Core i7, i5, i9 with the plus after the number, right? So the plus is supposed to signify that the platform would come equipped with Optane memory, like sort of installed. Like, so if you have
OEM systems.
Yeah, like OEM systems with this particular dark blue badge on them just implies that you have Optane memory just as part of the system. Now, whether or not, I mean, you could potentially still put Optane memory in other mobile platforms on 8th gen parts.
They should give you two case badges. You have the,
so when you
the
upgrade,
regular one and the plus.
yeah,
so if you put an Optane in there, you can stick it over there.
Stick it over the other one, yeah. So it's essentially the same stuff that we've covered in the past as far as Optane memory. Like we tested it on a desktop system when it first came out. However, Optane memory first came out, and the controllers on those parts had really no sense of an idle state. There was no hardware spin down the controller kind of thing, even possible. They really acted more like an enterprise part in that respect.
Yeah, they weren't really meant for low power states.
Yeah, they just weren't. Kind of just wasn't designed in yet. And then we had the 800p come out, which looked exactly the same. Like even the PCB layout was the same, right? However, they did bake in power management into those because they wanted to be able to put 800Ps into mobile systems and have them, not just vampire away at the battery when you weren't doing anything, which is just a system. That'd be kind of silly. So since they already had the ability to spin down that controller, now they're going to come out with, and I'm not sure how they're going to denote this as being different, but they're going to sort of re-release the Optane memory parts in a power conserving form or whatever.
That seems like kind of a mess, but I guess
yeah, I'm not sure. They're gonna have to label it slightly different.
Yeah.
We don't know yet.
I mean, most people.
This is the 90 Optane. This is the 92 Optane.
Right.
Yeah. Have you seen Intel's rest of their lineup? This is not a new thing.
Yeah,
But
so
this is really not consumer facing. The amount of people who would buy an Optane module and know that they are able to put it in their laptop for caching use is very, very low, I would imagine. This is more a part for OEMs.
So I'm guessing they're just going to immediately phase out the old ones, switch it over to the new ones, because based on our 800p testing, there's not really any, even though it can do power management and stuff, it's not really going to slow anything down. Right, if it's in an idle state, it's incredibly fast at spinning back up to the point where it's negligible. So basically, even though it does power management, no performance impact or just negligible. So they're going to swap those out. The 16 and the 32 gig will probably just be replaced with these new versions, and there's going to be a 64 gig version, which is added. Right, they didn't have that before, and it's also going to make things more confusing because there is currently a 58 gigabyte 800p. So people might look at the 64 gigabyte Optane memory part and go, well, that one's got some more space on it.
Well, it does.
I'll just buy that and use that as my OS drive. But the reason you don't want to do that is because the 800p is using some of that space to help properly manage the media, the crosspoint, for wear leveling and stuff like that. Whereas when you're using an Optane memory part, the driver takes care of the wear leveling. The drive does not have to do that because the software that you run on the system is handling that, right? So basically, anybody using an Optane memory SSD as primary storage directly, you have to realize you're kind of giving up something there where down the road you could potentially burn out parts of the media.
But the endurance of Optane is so high to begin with.
That's true. It is. But that said, if something in your OS hammers away every few seconds at a particular sector range, you might actually cause some problems. Anyway, so 64 gig part.
What might you use that 64 gig part for?
I don't know, because when we did our testing on 16 and 32 gig, Once 16
You
gig.
didn't understand the segue. I was segueing into this next slide here. You might use it for accelerating your Steam drive.
Well, but along that route, yes, they're adding. Actually, as of now, even though these parts aren't out yet,
Does the software support it today?
Yeah, the most recent
Okay.
Optane memory that should be live now. That driver does support this. So even if you have a 32 gig part and you have a speedier NVMe or a speedy NVMe SSD like a 960, from Samsung or something, you just want to use that as your OS drive, and then you have a big Steam like hard drive full of games, or some SATA SSD maybe that's like a kind of an older, slower one or whatever.
Maybe like we've seen those Micron full TLC drives on sale, super cheap for the 2 terabyte version.
Yeah,
you could use something like
and
this.
you can get that. And don't get me wrong, those are speedy, but if you want to give it a little extra kick, you can add a Optane memory caching layer to a secondary drive now. And that applies to SATA. You can't Optane memory cache an NVMe SSD, just so you know.
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of overkill when you get to that point. You're kind of diminishing returns.
Seems like you
by
wouldn't
then.
see any real gains out of that.
It gets to the point where you're really splitting hairs once you're, already have a fast NVMe SSD. So you can do that, which is great, and that's effective now. But dang it, you derailed whatever my other thought was I was trying to get to. What was I going to say? There's something else relevant here.
Optane caching doesn't really use more than 32 gigs ever.
Yes, that was my point that I want to make. Well, we did a bunch of testing. We were doing crazy stuff like installing Office and installing a few huge games and doing all this other stuff. And even moving that much data around, the 32 gig Optane memory module had a hard time rolling other stuff off of the cache. We really didn't see, we'd do some other huge operations a few times in a row and then go back to that original thing we did at the very beginning of the cycle, and it was still going fast. So it's pretty darn hard to have stuff roll out of the cache on the 32 gig Optane memory part. And I kind of asked / suggested this when we did the call with Intel. I was like, oh, well, we got 64 gig. That's plenty of space now. Why don't you guys make your driver be able to cache both, like your OS drive and your secondary drive? That would be great. And they said, well, it's a great idea, but they're not doing it right now.
It's an added level of complexity, certainly.
It is. Granted, it is definitely an added complexity. But, 64 gig, it's a lot of Optane to just use as a cache. And I really wish you could split it a couple of ways there. It'd be, then you could just say, your Optane memory accelerating everything in your system, right?
Maybe with the external drive stuff and expecting bigger drives and bigger game installs and stuff like that, they've adjusted the algorithm a little bit to actually use more of the storage. We'll have to test that and find out.
Yeah. It's just that, you figure if a person is going to shift over and want to put this Optane memory caching their secondary drive, then somebody might be able to argue, well, now you're giving up having Optane memory on your OS drive, which, it's you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot a little bit. Sure, your game loads are accelerated, but now all your OS stuff is going to be slightly slower.
Yeah. Just buy a SATA SSD at that point.
Just buy a SATA SSD.
For your boot drive. Right. And
have your OS on a SATA SSD?
Yeah.
No, I would have it on an NVMe SSD.
As opposed to a hard drive.
Oh, sure.
I have mine on
if your
USB.
argument is that you should be caching both of them, at that point,
right,
you should just have a real SSD.
Yeah. I personally lean towards just Optane memory cache your OS drive, and then just have a
I'm excited to see the performance of the secondary size drive stuff because, you have a 2, 4, 6, 8 terabyte hard drive. They're slow. And if you can get any more speed out of it for $30, right? That's compelling.
Yeah. I mean, even if you threw the 32 gig part based on what we saw, how the 16 gig and the 32
we all
gig
got
parts
spare
act.
M.2 slots on our boards.
Yeah. But 32 gig would be good for say 2 or 3 relatively large games that you were playing actively. Because remember, it doesn't have to fit the whole game in the cache, just the parts it's actually loading, right?
Yeah.
Which is not the
You're
entire.
not loading all of the textures from the 100 gig install into one level.
Yeah. So it's only has to pick little pieces of that game out of it, and so it'll keep whatever recent round of games you're playing running as if it was on an SSD, even if it wasn't.
Yeah,
which is cool.
All right, so we're not done with 8th Gen news yet.
Unfortunately.
Apparently,
wait a minute.
What
What
are you doing?
Because I thought the whole thing was awful.
What are you doing there?
You guys only got to one story while I was gone?
No, we did 3.
Only one thing went down.
Well,
Look at me. Look at me.
It was grouped.
Look at me.
Yeah.
I'm the podcast host now.
All right. I know what it's like over here.
Did you go get some nacho fries at Taco Bell?
They don't have them anymore.
Yeah, should have.
They don't have it. Thanks, Josh.
Little. Okay. But you said they don't have them anymore?
No, they temporarily are discontinuing them because they were in too high of demand, quote unquote.
What?
That makes the
That's
opposite
crazy.
of sense.
Yeah,
All right. Anyway.
yeah,
They were so good.
they are good. The $5 nacho fry box is pretty good. Got like a chalupa and
All right,
Doritos
guys. I don't even
taco.
see the show. I don't even see the picks of the week on the board yet. Let's go through this.
All right. So, along with Intel's 8th gen announcement, some OEMs decided to announce systems with these processors.
Ooh, surprise,
So,
surprise.
We'll go through a couple of these announcements. First, we have Gigabyte with their Aero 15 line of laptops. These laptops, I saw a couple of them at CES at different booths, like in Gigabyte and Nvidia. They're really compelling. I want to get my hands on one of them. They're super thin and light gaming notebooks that don't really seem to have a lot of compromise, which is interesting. So
They
here
just
we
perform
have.
well. Go figure. You mean there's high performance in a very small thing in modern
I
times?
mean, we're talking near ultrabook thin with 45-watt processors and discrete GPUs. So it's pretty impressive.
Yeah,
Here
that
we're
is.
talking
1.8 centimeter thick and
Yeah.
a GTX, either a 1070 or 1080, depending on what you buy for
not
the Aero.
max Q even. So we're talking
No,
the
not.
full GPUs here and 6-core processors. You have either the i7-8850H or the i9. So you could have an unlocked processor. These are probably not going to get a lot of overclocking headroom in it, but
Do we think the Max-Q brand left for
it
good?
seems like it because all of these
Nope.
announcements, no one has Max Q machines.
Yeah.
One of them does.
Oh, really?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
There's an
I haven't
ROG
seen one yet.
Which one?
What's ROG?
ASUS, isn't
I
it?
remember.
No, the
I think it's
Zephyrus
the
isn't.
ASUS.
Zephyrus is not Max Q.
It's not a Max Q?
No.
Oh, what? Jeremy saw a Max Q recently, I guess. So.
I didn't see any in the announcements, but I wasn't looking too close for that. And then
No, because I recently typed Max Q out.
Fair
so
enough. what's
somewhere on the
this
site.
AORUS Grand Trio stuff? I haven't looked at this, Jeremy.
the AORUS got the brand refresh because, well, hey, 8th gen.
It's a good opportunity.
And they sort of stuck with everything that they've done before. So you've got a 1920 by 1080p screen with 144 hertz refresh rate and G-Sync. And that's straight across the board on all of them. You get a pair of M.2 PCI SSDs with a 2.5-inch hard drive for storage if you sort of need it. All but the one has a 1080 in it. The 15-inch guy is actually a 1070. And every single one of these comes with an overclocked processor, or in the case of the X9 DT, it's set at base clocks, but you can overclock it however you feel like, because it is one of those fancy processors that allows you to do it.
This is
and
interesting. I've never seen this about displays before. Each display has been calibrated by a professional using an X-Rite solution from Pantone.
Which they're claiming is 100% Adobe RGB.
Wow.
Yeah.
144 hertz, 1080p, 100% Adobe RGB display.
Yeah.
It seems like they should flip some sort of HDR switch on that. Maybe the backlight. It probably doesn't have local dimming. The backlight can't get bright enough, but
Right.
Never stopped anybody else.
Yeah, everybody else is doing it.
some recent displays we've been looking at.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of the Gigabyte Aeros, the 15X V8 that had the Max Q. Not the one in the original announcement.
Yeah. Interesting. Moving on, we have ASUS's announcement, as we alluded to. They announced a couple of machines. None of them were too exciting. They were just kind of updates with the 8th gen parts, besides the new ROG Zephyrus M GM501. And, okay, spoiler alert, where's the keyboard going to be?
In a good spot.
Yay!
Not at the very, very front
No.
of the form.
They listened. They made the laptop a couple of millimeters, or like tenths of inch. I think it's like a tenth of an inch thicker at the maximum point because it's kind of a tapered design. Move the keyboard to the right spot. Put in a 5 watt-hour larger battery, so it's now 55 watt-hours. We have 6-core processors now. We have up to a 1070, full 1070, along with the ability to switch between the discrete and integrated graphics, because one of the major pain points on the original Zephyrus was the lack of battery life, because it was always using the discrete GPU. Even in our web browsing battery test, it was using the 1080 Max-Q.
Yeah.
So hopefully we see a bit of a battery life advantage to this. I think we have one of these on the way to us. They've also added a sort of mandatory 1 terabyte FireCuda SSHD as a secondary drive. So
I'm sorry, did you call it a FireCuda?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, that's what they call their SSHDs
They added it.
now.
They used to just call them SSHDs, and now it's a part of the
Now it's an
FireCuda
awesome
line.
name.
Now it's a FireCuda?
Yeah.
It's in the FireCuda line.
I imagine a fish
Not only is it a
underwater
barracuda, it's on fire.
Yeah, it's like
breathing
On
fire.
fire, yes.
Yeah.
Nice, I like it.
A lot of the same I/O. We have Thunderbolt 3, USB Gen 1, 3.1, Gen 1, and Gen 2, HDMI 2.0.
Cool.
Same general size, price points. Same
But the keyword's in the right spot.
Yeah. We have the highest end configuration at 2200. The $14.99 Best Buy exclusive configuration, which I did not spell exclusive correct in this article, coming in May is actually pretty interesting. You have a 1080p non-G-Sync 120 hertz display with the 1060 and 128 gig SATA drive instead of the NVMe 256 gig drives in the higher end configurations. But for $1,500 for a thin and light gaming notebook with a keyboard in the right spot, seems
Is
pretty
it correct
good.
that it's not G-Sync, you said?
Correct. Yeah, it's they don't have the G-Sync display in that one.
That's a shame.
Boo.
Fine. I thought it was interesting. I thought
think
it might be
I'm
a
with
compelling
Ken.
option.
What's their
Hey,
refresh
you
rate
know
though?
what? You
Hashtag.
find filament interesting.
Are their refresh rates higher than 60?
I mean,
Yeah, it's
I think the
120.
filament in
Okay,
a
well,
light
that's good
bulb
then.
is incredibly interesting from
No,
an
I'm
engineering
not talking
standpoint.
filament in
Well, go
3D
stare at one then.
printing.
Well, do you want to talk about the difference between ABS, PLA, PTG?
Oh, could we? That would be fascinating.
okay.
That would take like an hour.
I do see
of
picks
just
of the week on the board now.
unforgettable
We made it.
podcasting.
That new
history.
ASA filament, it's got the advantages of ABS. It doesn't do
Oh,
UV.
good Lord, Ken.
It doesn't degrade in UV, and it's easy to print. I mean, come on. What
Can
more could
we
you
talk
want?
about the heating
it
of the
sticks to the
base
plate,
plate
doesn't it?
when we start printing at the base? Come
Oh,
on.
you definitely need a heated bed for that.
children.
Yeah.
Children.
Absolutely. A heated enclosure would be better, but then your electronics could overheat. So, speaking of not overheating electronics, speaking of thin and light gaming notebooks, we have the MSI GS65 Stealth.
I saw this in person.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, when it was at GTC, and it's nice. The
How
design
well does it skip across the lake?
it would do very well, I think. The design
Nice.
styling is much better than the previous ones. It still has like a full size Ethernet jack on it.
That's about the thickest thing on the laptop, right?
It is. It's like there's very little plastic between the edges of that and the body itself. And they put like a huge battery in it. I want to say like 90 something watt hour battery in this
Lord.
thing.
Yeah, it's like 91, I think.
Yeah. They claim to
ridiculous.
get more than 8 hours in the kind of standard mobile mark battery test.
I don't think you could take this on an airplane.
What do you mean?
It's got a 91 watt hour
Don't
battery.
tell anybody.
They don't check that crap.
So
You could break through the cockpit door with that magnesium powder. It'd be
I don't
like
think
an
it's
axe.
magnesium.
So it's really interesting, and it's not terribly expensive, I don't think either. Like I think it starts in that same $1,400 range.
I like their subtle design change. They went with black and gold this time as sort of like the black and red thing
Yeah.
they've been doing. I think the gold accents are kind of nice.
Can I mention one thing about that?
Sure.
Absolutely.
Look at those hinges.
Yeah.
Seriously. Look at those and all the stuff that has to go through those hinges.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fair.
That's
The only thing that
That's
worries
kind
me
of
is
beautiful.
are the hinges sturdy enough? Is
Yep.
there going to be a lot
I
of
hope
screen
so.
wobble? Because I hate that. I hate
usually
I hate
pretty
it
good
when
at
it
that.
wobbles. You know.
aesthetics.
You do see
it's top notch.
you see where they kind of cheated with like reducing bezel size by just making a gap there. Like that would be bezel otherwise.
Well, I mean, it has a very thin bezel on the top left and bottom. Or I'm
One
sorry,
camera on
top
the right-
left and right. The
in the right
bottom
spot.
is a thicker bezel. I didn't think to look where the camera might be.
It's in the top middle
Is
as
it?
you would
Okay.
want it to be.
But you know, it's to the point, having seen it in person, where the bezel is thin enough. Like, do I
Yeah.
need it thinner? Probably not. Do I want like your original MacBook Air? No. but
Nobody wants that. Not even me anymore.
Inch and a half.
inch and a
frickin'
half,
bezel.
right? It's like this is not a picture frame, guys. But I actually I'm really I really liked the GS series previously when we did like all those MSI notebook roundups.
Yeah.
It was always my favorite. It was the best mix of thin and light and gaming performance. I'd like to see what this changes.
And they also have, I don't know if they announced it, but they do like a workstation version of this as well. With
Yes.
Quadro graphics.
Yeah.
So that's probably coming soon, but an interesting option if you're trying to get work to pay for your laptop. You go with one of those. Moving on, we have
We'll see how it compares to the watch band hinge that Yoga in front of you has.
this Yoga. This
Yeah.
Yoga in front of me.
That
That's
Yoga,
a second
look at
generation
that.
watch
Look
band.
at that
head.
watch
hinge.
band.
It's so smooth.
Look at that
So
movement.
smooth.
It is
And
very
it's
nice.
sturdy.
It's
very
firm,
nice.
yet
Yeah.
smooth.
Anyway, let's talk about that Huawei P20, yo.
I hear it has an amazing camera, which is
Three
pretty good
amazing
because it has
cameras.
3 on the back of it.
Jeez, Pete's.
Heck's the third one for?
You know, I don't remember.
It's for the fourth dimension.
But it now has the top DxO rating for a phone. A score of 109.
It's the urinal camera.
Because three.
I think one of them is monochrome.
I saw an interesting tweet. Yeah, that's used to gather like
Increase the
light
resolution.
data and increase.
Huawei's been doing that for a while where they had dual cameras and one was monochrome, the Leica quote unquote setup. But now they've moved to a
I saw an
triple.
I
interesting
think
tweet
that's
about
the
this.
one that does the stabilization too.
Oh, okay. I saw an interesting tweet about this where it's like, okay, just to prove to you that DxO score doesn't really mean that much. It's the best DxO score, but it's the worst camera app I've ever used in my life. Like kind of laggy, complicated, obtuse on how to change settings.
Yeah.
Which is the problem you get when you start to get too professional in your camera config.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, you know, me being able to take this what is this here?
GH4.
GH4 and give it to my wife and say, here, go take some pictures. They're not going to turn out great.
No.
But if I give her an iPhone 10, they're going to turn out pretty good because it's a push a button.
Yeah.
Now, that's not perfect for everybody, but it's perfect for most.
Yeah. I tend to have some problems with the DxO mark. They don't really take dual cameras into account, like specifically. Like they don't take the features of dual cameras, like being able to have a second focal point into account. And I think when I look at a lot of their comparison tests, like I had this happen with the S9, I honestly thought the Google Pixel 2 and the iPhone 10 cameras, iPhone 10, iPhone X, which one is it?
And
10
It's 10.
cameras, like some of the shots looked better. Samsung still does a lot of smoothing and artificial stuff in their
Yeah.
photos, which makes me a little suspicious of the DxO test if they don't kind of pull that out as being worse. But I don't know. They're kind of very close knit with exactly they're looking for in those benchmarks, which, you know, can be a bit here or there.
How much is it?
I don't know if we have U.S. pricing for this. In the article, we have £799.
Yeah. That's like
that sounds like a lot of money.
well, the person who wrote this has
Was drunk.
1,23.93, which I believe is missing at least one digit after the comma before the decimal. So I'm going to say $1,200.
I mean, we wouldn't expect it to be $1,200. We'd expect it to be $800.
I would not expect it to be
You
$1,200.
usually have a pretty straight conversion when it comes to that stuff. It's usually not more in the U.S. than it is.
Huawei has a lot of trouble selling devices over here anyway.
Yeah, retail availability is difficult.
I guess they're still selling direct on Amazon and stuff, so we'll see.
Yeah.
How about storage, guys? How about that Samsung M.2 Z-NAND? I hear about this, I don't know, every second month.
for the past 2 years.
yeah. So now it's for real, right?
Well, no.
Oh, they showed it off at a summit. That's
It's
cool.
really
Yeah,
thin
they
now.
saw it. They saw it at a show. It was sitting on a table. Yeah, M.2 22110. So that's that longer M.2 slot. But this is not supposed to be something you install on your desktop board anyway. So there's that. But this is most likely first generation Z-NAND, which was like basically Z-NAND is like Samsung's sort of rushed answer by rushed over the past 2 years to Crosspoint, right? So it's
Cross
not
stitch? What?
it's not phase change. It works like NAND. It's just they've done a lot of tricks in how they're making this particular NAND work to shave a whole bunch of time off of the latency.
So you're saying that Samsung is turning a lot of tricks to shave something off of something else.
Gum sticks.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway,
It's like a landing strip, but not really.
so the idea is you're getting latencies that are much faster than NAND, even Samsung's NAND, which is already kind of fast. Like their NAND runs and VNAND runs like in 60 microsecond read latencies. This stuff probably runs like, I don't know. Well, in the article it says 12 to 20, but yeah, I've seen slides at Flash Memory somewhere where they were showing it running, like on the order of 15 or 20 microseconds. So, you're going much faster than NAND. You're going closer to cross-point speeds. Not all the way there, but honestly, if you can get most of the way there at a cheap price, then, that's probably good enough, right?
And will we ever see this?
In a consumer part?
No. Period.
Oh. Even if it came in an enterprise part, we still would never see it because Samsung deals with very few vendors for their enterprise parts.
Okay.
And they're all like under NDAs and like you never see, samples or anything of enterprise parts
If
out of
I
Samsung.
remember correctly, I have a couple of alerts set up on eBay and sites like that for Z-NAND products, just in case one ever pops up.
Yeah.
We can order it and test it.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
You can kind of see where like the sacrifices they had to make when you look at the specs. So the random reads has an amazing rate. It's like 750,000 IOPS, but the random writes is only 170,000. Compare that with cross-point devices, which usually have the same random read and write IOPS numbers. They're usually very high for both, right?
Yeah.
This clearly is doing some extra work during the writes in order to help it be really faster in the reads.
Yeah.
Rob Peter to pay Paul.
You have to, and actually that's the inverse of what you would normally see from NAND, right? Because usually we see NAND SSDs respond to the writes very quickly because then it happens in the background while the host can go on to something else.
Yeah.
This is like, the inverse of that, basically. Anyway, so that's that. Next up, speaking of NAND and regular NAND SSDs, ADATA launched a XPG GAMMIX, weird name, S11.
Is that GAMMIX or GAMMIX?
GAMMIX.
Well, it's meant as a gaming SSD.
Mixture.
Like they specifically talk about aimed at gamers and enthusiasts. So this, I have, yeah.
But there's two M's.
I know.
Gam.
But
when has letters
They've
when have
never made
letters really ever defined how you pronounce product names?
Whoa.
Never.
I mean,
but you know what? It's
Not.
it's not
don't get me wrong. It
the
could be
size of the
GAMMIX.
boat. It's the size of the Silicon Motion of the ocean, or something like that.
Anyway, 240 gig, 40 gig, 960 gig capacities. It's using the Silicon Motion SM2262 controller, which is a by 4, NVMe SSD controller.
NVMe 1.3.
NVMe 1.3.
Have we seen
it's
a 1.3 drive yet?
Yeah, I think even the SPXs conform to 1.3. Like
Oh,
there's,
I thought that was new.
it's a new spec, but it's been out since
okay.
it's been out for like 6 months or something. So the specs look good. Obviously, the specs look on par with a 960 Evo. So honestly, that's kind of the expectation now. Like SSDs that are launching now should at least be matching the specs of the 1.5-year-old SSD out of Samsung, right?
But it's got a RAID engine. I read it right here. RAID
That's,
engine and data shaping features.
It's not like real
data
RAID.
shaping.
RAID
It's just-
engine.
Did you
It's not
say
real
data
RAID.
shaving or shaping?
Whichever one you want.
I don't know, but yeah,
doesn't matter.
That stuff that relates to it's doing some form of like error correction that's above and beyond just a simple die level error correction. It has some ability to kind of like use data that's on the other dies to try to do error correction. Doesn't mean you can have a die of flash just fail and the drive keeps going because you had like a RAID 5. It's not how that works.
So I'm gonna let you finish. But
But-
why are people putting
Heat spreader
heat
thing?
sinks on top of that when they say, "Hey, it's 10C cooler
So
than the usual ones"?
So here's the thing. I'm actually okay with a heat spreader type thing like this. because you have a hotspot on a M.2 SSD, and that's usually the controller while the drive is active. And then you have the rest of the PCB that has all the flash on it, right? If you have something good at spreading the heat over a larger area, it's not. They say 10C
Shea
cooler. It's not like the whole average temperature of this whole part drops by 10C just because it has a piece of aluminum on top of it, right? It's not a heat sink with fins and stuff.
Well, you know what? I'm a lot cooler when you drop a large piece of aluminum on me.
What about aluminium?
Especially like an
Aluminum.
hour or two after you do the dropping.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
So the idea here is to take the heat from the controller and help spread it across the larger area of the part,
So you're heating up the NAND.
which I totally am a fan of. I think that's the best way to go because NAND.
Because
while
you know
you're-
what? You get better performance when you heat up the NAND.
No, not performance. You get better endurance out of it.
Longevity, endurance.
Yes, because if you were able
Like
to,
you're wearing something over your NAND.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
aren't
yeah,
performance
yeah.
and
Longer
endurance the same
endurance.
thing, really?
So it's funny they use the 10C thing because 10C is actually the even number that you use in electronics. And when you're saying if you increase temperature of a part by 10C, then you're doubling the failure rate of that part. So now you don't really hear about SSD controllers just failing, right? So you're not. That's not the concern. They're not so close to some margin that that's going to happen. However, you're not really going to thermal throttle anything. And if you were able to increase the NAND temperature while it was active by 10C, then you are doubling the endurance. It works inverse in that case because NAND, it's easier to tunnel electrons. Josh.
I'm not saying a damn thing.
Oh, you got no joke. You got no joke for the
So
hot
show me-
electron injection.
You know what? Alex told me, like, seriously, Mr. Walrath. Really talk to you about toning down your tone.
Show me the page again with the specs on it. Poor favorite. So I can, change the channel. Or topic for that matter. Or both. 3,200 megabytes per second sequential on reads, 1,700 on writes, 310, 280. I mean, is that relatively understood at this point for this controller?
Yeah, and the 310 280 thing is the whole megapixel race of IOPS. They're rating that at the crazy high Q depth that you never actually hit.
Yeah,
when
sure.
you're-
But everybody else does it, so.
Everybody else is doing it too, yeah. But
1
it
million
stands-
to 1 contrast ratio on
More
my
important
SSD.
then, what about
Yeah.
that pricing? How about that 960 for 309?
It's like, what, 32, 33 cents a gig? Is that what that works out to?
I mean, that's like,
That's a good price.
yeah.
It's
right?
essentially better than a 960 Evo.
It is.
By like 10 cents.
More. Yeah. They're running like 47 cents a gig.
Oh.
So, yeah, that's good, definitely. So, if it really what it boils down to is can the performance match the 960 Evo? If it's at least close, then you throw the price in, and it's like a no-brainer decision, right?
May I speak up now?
I don't know. Can you?
Yes.
You will see in my pick of the week that things do not look nearly so happy for ADATA.
Oh, okay.
Why is his audio making that weird sound?
His audio just went really weird.
Really? What did I do now?
I don't know.
Was I just enunciating not enough?
Was there a train passing nearby?
Yes.
No, it was compressor.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right. Are we getting one of these in to test and play around with?
We have not heard yet.
I'll make sure we get one of those in to test and play around with.
Okay.
All right. Shall we move on to our picks of the week?
Picks of the week.
Nah.
Do I still get to go first?
We'll start
Ryan.
with my pick of the week, which is, let's see here, 70% isopropyl alcohol wipes.
Still Ryan's pick.
Yeah.
Aw.
23.45 for one case of 6 40
rubbing
count
and
packages.
Honestly, Ken,
Come on.
that pick of the week deserved to be stolen from Ryan.
Yeah, I tried to tell him
Guys.
to pick something more interesting.
It really did.
You know.
What's more interesting
How
than a
have I
first
logged
aid
into
and a
Amazon on this laptop?
I don't know.
That's a good
Come on,
question.
rubbing and massaging. How can it be bad? Except for the sting.
So we use them around we use them around the office a lot, obviously, to
Great for cleaning off heat sinks.
clean off
Rubbing
processors,
and massaging.
Great for rubbing.
both rubbing and massaging.
If you're out of bourbon, you just suck on one. Good to go.
I do sometimes just open up the case and smell them to make sure they're still fresh.
I'm just
That's why it's all
smelling them
evaporated
right now
out.
because
I use them to clean off keyboards, mice, screens that my kid has smudged up with handprints with food
Things
stains
that
on them.
require alcohol to clean them off.
Yeah, but then also we use them to clean off thermal paste on your.
That's exclusively what I use them for, and they're wonderful.
Yeah, they are good for that. And I think anybody who is anybody should have some on hand. And they do not sponsor the podcast.
I mean, you could also.
I don't understand what the rubbing is for necessarily, but
I think Josh would be into this combo if Alex switches back.
No, I'm not.
I mean, come
It's
on.
a friendly stranger.
Yeah.
I don't think you want to use alcohol wipes for that, Josh.
After.
But you know what?
It's
These are
rubbing
powder
alcohol.
free.
It has lubricative proproperties.
No.
Ooh,
It does.
Yeah, you can get
Rubbing
4-gallon jugs of it.
That's 99%.
Can we move on to somebody else's pick now?
I guess.
That's some
That
serious
was
alcohol.
mine. By the way, that was not Ken's. That was my pick.
Alan.
All right, so there's this thing called Draftable, which was a program that's actually kind of pricey. Like you license it for over $100 a year if you want to do it. Use that for a standalone
Alan's pick is a
program.
keygen.
No. No, there is an online version of it. You just go to draftable.com/compare, and you can drag in Word, PowerPoint, or PDFs on both sides of the compare, and you can actually compare. Say you had a Word document of yours, but you had a previous version that was already in a PDF. You're like, oh crap, what changes did I happen across these two formats? It'll do it.
That's cool.
It'll compare both.
I like that.
Now, why is this free and the desktop stuff you have to pay for?
Because for this, you have to send the documents across the internet to their server, whereas their standalone thing, if you got sensitive documents, you don't want to spread out. You want to do it all
I
on your
just
own.
share my sensitive documents across the internet, though.
Well,
You know what? I keep my sensitive documents private.
Yeah, and
thankfully.
and the standalone one also does Excel.
Oh, God. Comparing an Excel document.
So that's kind of like
Very cool.
a power usery thing. But yeah, I saw somebody online was comparing a couple of documents that came out from a company, and they just sent a link that was the already like comparing link to
That's
this
cool.
tool.
We can share it.
Yeah, and you could just share that resulting link with people, and they can see what the differences were between those two PDFs or those two whatever, right? Cool tool. I'm sure it'll be useful to somebody at some point. in time.
Nice.
Somebody.
Somewhere.
Somebody.
Find me.
Somebody.
All right. Jeremy. Nope. Wrong link.
All right. Well, it's kind of.
Why is it always Jeremy?
Jeremy.
Jeremy.
I did find something, which is the HyperX Fury 8 gig kit, DDR4 26666. But buy it in a single because the sale is actually only on the single 8 gig DIMMs. If you buy the pairs, it scales up significantly more.
Oh,
This is Canadian dollars.
Yes, this is Canadian.
so you're saving like $20 there.
Around there.
Yeah,
buying
and technically those ones are on sale too, because usually these are like 150 and the others are over 300.
2666, perfect for your Coffee Lake processors that support that frequency natively. And I think the first gen Ryzen got there.
Yeah, Ryzen likes high frequency RAM as well.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Nice.
All right, let's see Josh's mystery.
Oh, God.
Do you
We've been
really want
waiting.
to see my mystery?
We're waiting all these minutes.
Magical mystery tour.
I want to
All
see your
these
bare
minutes,
minimum.
My mystery.
Don't, but
You know,
I
we
have
were
to-
talking about ADATA and their XPG latest thing, and how fast it is, and how inexpensive it is. You know what?
Well, we don't really know that yet, but
You can get a Samsung 960 Evo for $199.99, 500 gig. It's
40 cents a
low
gig.
price now. I mean, it's it's still high price as compared to other SSDs, but
it's a really good SSD.
No, that's a good price on the
It's
Evo.
finally back down to the price I bought my 500 gig 960 Evo for last June.
Yeah, it's nice that we've finally gotten to this point.
I'm
Again,
surprised it's that cheap there because like we were just looking like an hour ago or,
Yeah, on
two, or
Amazon.
two. Yeah, and Amazon had them all at like 47 cents a gig. So this
Screw Amazon.
this listing at 40 cents a gig is a good sale.
and they're fast, and it's consistent. And if you just want something that works fast and consistently,
Yeah, 960
This
Evos
is the only
are
thing in town,
extremely proven and very good performers.
yeah,
Cool.
for the price.
All right, Alex, what you got?
Well, Alex has one.
I do. I actually have
Morgan.
I have 3.
Oh, I don't have
I'm
time
only
for
showing
that.
2. You can guess which two.
We'll just go through this real quick. So,
No, he's talking about Dick Morgan.
yep, I am talking about Dick Morgan and my man crush, Takashi Kovacs.
My hair looks a lot more red in this camera.
It does.
So does that door.
It's a very red door. Anyway,
Not.
And actually, the door looks
Light the
great.
tiki lamps and you'll get even redder.
Anyway,
so my wife and I have quite enjoyed the Netflix series Altered Carbon. We actually went through a second watch through. Yep, I can't talk. And on our vacation last weekend, I picked up the trilogy from Barnes & Noble, which is Altered Carbon, Broken Angels, and Woken
Furries.
Furies.
Woken Furries.
Woken Furries.
It's
Every
4chan's
time.
favorite book.
Oh, goodness.
Woken
The
Furries.
Woken
Yes.
Furries. They're all in Vancouver.
Look, I don't want to brag or anything, but
So anyway, yes, the original books came out. These were not very popular when they came out, but they are an extremely good read. I pretty much ran right through all 3 of these back to back to back. Highly recommended. And also Netflix series is really good too.
All right.
cool.
honestly, my favorite scene is that involves his hotel. Like everything that deals with that hotel is just beautiful.
The hotel innkeeper is probably one of the best characters I've seen in a very long time. Unfortunately, they had to change who that was in this.
Yeah.
In the TV series, it's Edgar Allan Poe. In the books, it's Hendrix.
Yes. And that's why I've only ever watched the first episode of Altered Carbon on Netflix, because when they got it that wrong, I just stopped.
Well,
The one on stage is probably easier to work with than the other.
yeah, I think that's
I
licensing.
don't care about easy.
It
I want
doesn't.
good.
Hey, follow through on it. It is totally worth it. That character owns that role so well.
Okay.
Who's Hendrix?
I'm going
It's
to
a
use the
gin.
mute button again.
It's a gin.
It's okay. He's not experienced.
He's not experienced.
This is where your old manness comes out, whereas most of the time my young manness comes out with your references.
Hendrix.
Jimi Hendrix with the guitar.
Oh, okay. Well, never mind then. Gotcha.
All right, that'll do it for this episode of the PC Perspective podcast.
It will. Yes.
I got
We're
nothing
done.
else to
We
cut
got
to
nothing.
Ryan.
We'll be back next week with another episode. I'll probably be here again.
For how long?
I don't
I
believe
was
it.
here. Let's be fair. I only missed one topic that you guys talked through. Only
Wasn't
one
even a full
bullet,
one.
One
3
bullet
posts.
point on it. Well, hey, it was one bullet point on the rundown. That's all I cared about.
Alex?
PCPer.com/podcast. Go there, download the episodes, the show notes, the RSS, the videos, all the things that you need can all be found there. And that is going to do it for us, right? This
Right.
chair reclines, guys. I don't know. I think I might find a new permanent spot.
Are you going to be the side?
He's just going to be the heckler.
I'm just going to heckle from now on. Thanks, guys. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Thanks to Audible for supporting PC Perspective. For a free audiobook with a 30-day free trial, go to audible.com/PCPer or text PCPer to 500 500.